Happy Thursday. How's it going, folks?
Good, how are you?
Going all right. Trying to get PRs merged and make some progress here.
Yeah.
I need a couple of the image spec maintainers in here, at least someone in addition to John, to go through a couple of them. Shall we start on distribution spec first, since we got Josh already asking questions there?
Yeah, it seems like the removal of talking about artifact manifest from that is basically all we need to cut a release. And so I'm wondering, should we do that?
So I've linked into there the milestone. We've got let's see, 9 open issues on the milestone right now. Conformance test is a bunch of them. That's something that I've personally committed to helping with once we get everything sorted out on this. Once we at least know the direction we're going for things. Let's see. Looking through the other issues right now, see if there's anything important that we want to make sure we get. There was a question about versioning data. I don't know if we want to even try to tackle that. I think that's more like a 1.2 or later issue.
Okay, let me open a different can of worms because I see Ram here too. So in the milestone is conformance testing for references, which he actually put together a while ago. So I have a PR up. It's the number 401. And when we're adding conformance tests, we don't really know if the tests are going to break registries. And I guess we can't really ever know unless we're testing all the registries. But Zot has basically, since it's been around, been trying to track the changes on main, as far as I understand, and also Aura stuff. And so I'm thinking that what we should do is when we open a PR to change conformance, spin up Zot latest release and see if conformance passes against it. As we were doing this, we found that our conformance tests and the spec in general break one of the IETF like
Talking about the bytes
The
equals.
the formats of these headers. And I was talking to John Johnson about this a little bit. Basically, the range and content range headers have always been broken, but it's how everything's doing it. And so we have to decide whether we want to stick with the broken way for legacy reasons or allow both in conformance, even though that means that if the registry is doing it, it might break a client. Just
My
want to get
preference, thinking about that one, because I saw a little bit of that discussion, my preference would be registries should be strict in what they output. And so we should, in our conformance tests, be very specific of saying without the bytes equals, even though it's not going to follow everything else. And if a client wants to be more permissive and allow that on the client side, then that's great for the client. But we should expect the registry should be strict in what they output.
I don't like that.
so you
You
don't like that?
Well,
I would say at least for the 1.1. If we want to start changing this stuff, I think that's a bigger version bump.
I think I'm confused on the suggestion. You're saying force registries to follow the RFC.
I'm saying force registries to follow what we've got in the spec.
I don't want to be in the world where to be conformant, you have to be non-conformant with a different spec. I understand why you have this opinion though. Like it's bad if we break clients, right? But like practically a registry could know like, oh, this client sent me a broken header on the request, I can send them back a broken header on the response. But yeah, like my worry is that there's software that expects servers to do things that are conformant to HTTP RFCs, and because of how HTTP composes with proxies, if we're not good netizens of the protocol, then it can be bad for other reasons. But like, I also don't want to break a bunch of clients, so I don't have a great suggestion.
That's my problem, is I don't want to break a bunch of clients either.
I think that, it's a two-phase thing where like we need registries to support both before clients can start using the correct thing, which may never happen. I just don't want to like force registries to do something wrong. I don't know. This hurts me deeply.
At least right now, I'm comfortable saying that both registries and clients should accept both. But they should produce what we put in the spec.
If we have like a backward compatibility clause, I'm fine with that. Like legacy clients, blah, blah, blah.
Sajay, I see the thumbs up, but I think we've got multiple opinions going on here. What are you thinking?
I think the backwards clause is the best, having both for some time.
I don't know how we get a forward clause in there to add bytes without breaking someone. It's going to happen.
Wouldn't the should be a forward clause?
Like at some point, have registries follow the RFC specs instead of the distribution spec. When we make that change, it's going to break clients somewhere.
I mean, registries already, so like on the download path for range requests, I assume they're doing the RFC compliant thing because most registries just redirect to a blob store, which doesn't know about OCI. But on like this particular chunked upload path, we have this idiosyncratic behavior. I think it's not breaking for registries to accept both on the request, it is potentially breaking for registries to respond with the correct thing, right? So if the conformance text requires registries to support both on the request for now, then we can like get registries happy maybe, and then we want clients to support both on the response. And then once that's true, then registries can move to the correct response. But that's, you know, a 3-phase thing, which sucks.
Yeah, it's also the once that's true is a very nebulous definition. How do you know all the clients have upgraded?
Pianon, do you think that that is evidence of like this is fine, or that a lot of implementations handle this either way, so we shouldn't care?
I think it's probably the latter, that there are a lot of implementations that have probably been forced to handle this either way by non-compliant implementations of the HTTP spec.
Yeah. My end goal is that I can be compliant with both HTTP and OCI. And whatever it takes to get to that point, I'm happy with. I don't want to have an end state where like you can't be compliant with both.
And we push solving this to after 1.1.
That's fine with me. I don't know exactly what's in this PR. I don't know if we can massage it to be like non-committal.
We had a commit that would allow either. So
I would say produce one, allow either response.
yeah, so we're producing it in the broken format. That's not in question.
Produce in the distribution spec format, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll push that up, and then maybe I can get some +1s and we can carry on with conformance of references.
Yeah, I remember John bringing this up a while back, and I've still got to do on my own code to make sure I'm generous in what I accept. All right, well, we've got Dianon, John, and Sajay all here, so we can talk image spec stuff. Got 2 different PRs sitting out there. One of them I was hoping was going to be easy and quick, which was 1042. And I went ahead and rebased that since that took out one of the changes. Should I do a screen share? That might be easier for folks. Chat back up and everything so I can follow along with the peanut gallery in the background. 1042, I think the biggest challenge we had last time was we wanted to change this line, and so I've got that changed. So I'm hoping with that this is good enough to merge. It was easier for me to talk through it of what changed in here. The big thing, we got rid of the scratch descriptor before already, so this just changed the text saying, here are the 2 variables we define later on. Same change down here. Here are the 2 variables we define later on. And if you look at manifest go, we had the variables defined already. I did rename one of them, took out the digest out of the data because this isn't a digest, it's the data itself. So called it scratch data, scratch digest, SHA-256. I can never say that fast enough. And put some docs on those. So put a comment together on each of those. So that's half the change. The other, go ahead.
At the risk of wasting everyone's time, why did we change it? I kind of liked it before. What is this about?
The change for the digest? right there.
Well, why did we split it from a descriptor? It's kind of nicely like one little object that
So
did
the
things.
the challenge of the descriptor was it might be useful for producing, but if you're consuming, it was mixing the output and the input was my biggest challenge, where the input was going to be, hey, I've got this digest. The output was going to be, okay, here's the data that you would get back if you queried that digest. And then that descriptor field was never really comparable with anything else. Now, we changed some of our wording since then and started doing the scratch descriptor with the media type field that's got the scratch media type. So maybe this would make sense to return and go back. But at the
I guess,
time, we
like-
had a different media type for every one of these configs as well.
Sorry, I missed something. Like you're saying comparing, it's hard to compare on the consumer side. Like, can't you
If I'm
just
a,
like
yeah, if I'm a
access the
consumer and I
digest?
say I've got this digest, I'm going to have to build a descriptor to get this data out of it. Right?
I don't understand.
The thing someone is looking for when they're doing this is to say, I've got a manifest that has this digest in there. I'm trying to shortcut getting the response from that digest, aren't I?
Sure, but I mean, you can just call dot scratch descriptor dot or scratch descriptor dot digest to get the same thing, right?
Yeah, but it was, like I say, you're mixing the inputs and outputs because the input is going to be the digest. And so you're inputting the digest, you're going to get the digest back out in the descriptor, and then you got to compare that and you got to get the data out of there as well.
I don't understand. I don't understand what you're saying by inputs and outputs. Like, it's
If I'm a client, what's my input to querying for a blob?
a digest.
And then what do I want to get back when I query for the blob?
Often a descriptor.
So I usually have the descriptor. I've got a manifest and the descriptors in there.
Yeah, okay. You want the content. But so
Yeah.
like why I guess it's like it's not any different to me. Like I don't see the distinction between having these be two separate variables and just like one descriptor.
Yeah, my opinion was a lot firmer when this was the config manifest. Well, it is the config manifest when the config media type was different for every one of these. Now that we're going to say the config media type is just a single value, I'm not as picky on that. If we want to go back, we already made the change once though. So I don't know if we want to keep flip-flopping back and forth.
Well, I personally would prefer this as a scratch descriptor. I think the only like point of contention I remember is that media type, like mutating the media type, could be bad or whatever. But since that's now static, I think it's totally fine to have one
Yeah,
scratch descriptor. But that's my opinion. I am interested if someone else cares.
That was my original idea, so I think it's clear where I stand. I think
I
it was
think-
Vincent who was strongly opposed to that, and he's not here to defend himself.
Do we have his opinion enshrined somewhere I can look at?
Vincent's PR had it as a descriptor, right? I think the cards fell down the moment we asked him to take the media type out. I think he broke up totally.
Once we started saying the media type is going to be different for each one of these, it didn't make as much sense. Now that we're saying the media type is going to be a single value, it makes sense to put it back in again.
Sorry, Brandon.
What's the sorry for? Did you?
It was churn. Churn is never fun.
Yeah, especially because I was like, this is just a quick, easy thing to change.
Stop having opinions.
thought this one was going to be done. All right, so do I have something else to change on this one again?
We just go back to the descriptor struct, right?
Go back to a descriptor struct, and then I think we are doing it as a function because we're worried about someone mutating it if we put a var over there.
I mean, who cares? It's like, what like the worst case, what happens? You know, the Go like standard library does this all over the place, so I don't think it's a huge deal. You could also, like, if you really wanted to, it might be nice to modify the Scratch descriptor globally for your terrible program. But like, I don't know that, you know, Go doesn't have like const correctness as part of its core being, so I'm not sure that we need to really care about that much. But maybe someone disagrees with that.
Not sure I follow Steve's comment here because we've got it in another PR, the other PR we describe, I think, what he's saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something completely. All right, so this one's going back in the churn pile. Not done on 1042, I guess. How about 1043? Maybe we'll make progress on this side. Sajay pointing out comments there. Is that quite possibly one of my own? So no, in this one, it was somewhere in there that I at least recommended that to some point. All right, I'm going to stop churning on this one for now. We'll come back to that later if we need to. 1043 is defining the artifact type guidance. How do people feel about this one?
If it makes you feel any better, I've had a tab open to this one for like 2 weeks now, intending to get to it.
You can't say your check mark doesn't count anymore.
Brandon, I feel like this PR depends on the other one that you punted on.
It did. The idea of splitting them apart was that I thought the other one was going to be quick and easy to approve. Particularly because we've already got this right now as two separate variables. So I'm not changing that part in this PR.
I mean, I'm not opposed to like merging stuff and then fixing it later.
That's the spirit I like to hear.
John Bull did say, I will think about it for another moment.
It feels as though we're introducing two ways to describe an artifact, which I don't like, but
It's one way to describe it if you don't have a config blob. If you do have a config blob, there are two ways. So you're correct there.
I think it's fine as like a concession for legacy things, but you know, for most implementations, I feel like they don't have to care about this at all. They're mostly going to be like querying the registry for an artifact type, and what they get back is what they want. Like registries have to carry this complexity, but it's not that bad, right? It's like a fallback of one field.
Right. So, and
The-
I haven't read it completely. I am assuming that we are pretty clear that artifact type should be used, then config media type or something.
That's a third PR on the distribution spec side, but yes. We initially take whatever the artifact type is. If this is blank, we fall back to the config media type.
I think he was asking, should producers prefer the artifact type field over the config media type? Is that right?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess for this, it would be focus for producers. There's another PR for my other concern. Registries.
I think there was that question of should we give direction? And I think I pushed Aaron off on that one. Was it Aaron or?
Brandon, I'm approving this because I wanted to bring you some joy.
Yeah, Aaron was asking, should we give that direction you're asking for there, Mike? Curiously, the other Mike Brown had already mentioned that. And my comment was, I'm open to it, but maybe a separate PR to say this is the direction we're steering people toward.
Okay.
And this PR was just saying both are valid. Everything's valid in this case.
Cool.
So from the producer side, they can do either. If they have a scratch here as the media type, they must provide an artifact type, but otherwise the artifact type is optional. If the artifact type is there and you're building the refers API response, then you use the artifact type. If it's not there, you fall back to the config media type. And the logic to that madness was that there are already artifacts out there today that do not have an artifact type, that do have a dedicated config media type. And so I didn't want to break things that already existed.
Right. Come all the way around.
Are you okay merging it, Brandon?
Am I open to merging? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Did I get all the approvals in this time? Sweet. And how about, because we did say it was kind of quasi related to this one.
Just address John Bull's comment though. That would be good. Just from I think it's valid to call out the backward case for Helm, but not in this PR. Like maybe as a follow up, we can do that.
Yeah, the Helm case was kind of the first example. I didn't want to put Helm specifically.
That's fine. We can
main.
debate on another PR for that. That's what I was thinking. Let's get this merged because to Mike Brown's point is if we have this, we know artifact type is you make the distribution spec PR depending on this. That's why.
Cool.
If you
I'm
are
open to merging. I don't know if we want to. I don't know if we want to get this other one done first before we hit merge on this one though.
for the artifacts that exist today that are already using config media type to sort of describe the artifact type, they could just start also adding the artifact type, but not put in a scratch layer if they don't want to, or not a scratch config.
They can. I'm sure they're going to have to worry about their own backward compatibility issues if they start adding new fields like that, just within their own tooling.
Okay.
But that would mean their tooling is not spec compliant, right?
Not so
Yeah.
much that they add a new field and their tool didn't ignore it, but more they add a new field and their tool didn't know to look for it.
Yeah, but I mean, they could start using the artifact type, or they could start adding the artifact type field and not paying attention to it for now, and then eventually start paying it. Like it would be backwards compatible.
Yeah, I think
If
to
they-
phrase what Michael's trying to ask in a different way, you don't have to set config media type to scratch in order to set artifact type.
Yeah.
It's
Correct.
perfectly fine as a producer if you want to set artifact type and config.media type to the same thing for the absolute compatibility.
Yeah.
In an existing ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's the thing, to keep things compatible with your clients. This would have to be the same value. You wouldn't be able to have a different artifact type and a config media type if you have existing clients out there.
So the
Maybe.
reason I was recommending to merge it is right now there's subject, that's one field, and then there's the artifact type field. So if you get that consistent, at least the consumer of distribution can get unblocked, even if the other PRs don't get merged.
Now, the other PR define the scratch stuff. Is there any hard dependencies between the two? I have to go back through and look and see. I know we've got like some call outs in here.
Probably a merge conflict between the two, but you're talking about the one we just threw back on the pile, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a merge conflict, but
Well, if it's going back on the pile, I've got to change all these fields anyway. So I'll have to fix that in whatever I resubmit. That's fine. Cool. So in that case, I'll say I'm good with merging. Should I do it live here on
Yes, please.
Everybody
Let's get
watching.
one thing merged.
while everyone is watching merge? Someone will complain. Go on. Okay. So now on the other side, let's see, I think I have that sitting right here somewhere. Use the artifact type. So this is the flip side of that equation. So 395 over in distribution spec answers the question of when that is there. Let's see, I'll hide the comments just so it's easier to read. When artifact type is set, then you use that for your value. And so the artifact type from the image manifest is your artifact type. If it is not set, so if it is empty or missing, then you use the config media type. And same language both places. If there's different phrasing I should use for this, happy to change it. But the idea was that there would be some kind of take it from the first one in the first place and then fall back. Questions, comments, concerns, thinking about better phrasing, or people hitting green checks over here and I just need to scroll down and look again.
Yeah, it sounds like you're already addressing the inconsistency issue over in the image spec. That was the thing I was concerned about.
Either Mike, I didn't realize you snuck in on me.
Probably just need to tweak it and maybe point to the image spec changes you're making.
I'll fix that. Did I not fix that, John? Shame on me. Okay, I got couple more small changes there.
I added another one. I
Yeah.
just don't, there are sentences that can be read in isolation that are incorrect. And so I want every sentence to be correct in isolation.
I completely agree. I was fighting with how to do that when I was putting this together, so I like this change.
I've added another suggestion after you already probably hit merge, sorry.
Well, I know the missing the extra space there was, I thought I fixed that already.
Yeah, I remember commenting that maybe it was on the other one.
Cool. So I think those are the ones that I've got to worry about. Stuff that other people want to talk about today. We can
So
pick different topics. We don't have to keep going back in circles in the same topics every week.
what's pending merge of 999 at this point now?
I think with 1043 done, I feel comfortable to 1999.
Somebody else has to click the button. I'm not doing it. I don't want to get in trouble.
You're already in trouble, John.
Troublemaker.
I'll be the one.
Are there merge conflicts? I'm surprised if there aren't. Okay, there are. I'll rebase.
And then once we do 999 and fix a couple of these other things and hopefully get a 1.1 out for image and distribution spec. Are folks still on board with inventing a new and better and more awesome artifact manifest?
Brandon, I'll do whatever you want.
I know you're the one that wants the more awesome artifact manifest, so I figure you're on board with that. Sajay, AWS Mike, you're good with an artifact manifest at some point in the future.
Let's not call it artifact manifest.
Manifest of things.
You know, it's jinxed at this point. That's what I feel.
Honestly, that's a good call because I know that we've got that code in a couple different places already. And so changing what it is,
I know.
it would be good to use a different media type there. TNon, I can't take that.
It's a troll.
Not
Not
it's
a
completely
serious
a troll.
Let's choose something that's spelled completely differently, so all the code will be fine, but we can't differentiate them verbally. It's a great idea.
The whole security space lately has been on that one saying it. What does it mean when we got this new artifact with this other spelling? It's like some special thing. It was like, nope, just the UK people. They do
There will
things
be
different.
a typo confusion attack. Okay, I repushed 999. Please clap.
Where are the changes real quick?
Did you guys talk about the OCI call next week? Or the OCI meeting? Yes.
We have not said what we're doing specifically on there. So that would be a good thing to discuss. I think I threw a few items in there.
Yeah, I can't go, but I was hoping to dial in.
That's my hope too. I know there's a way somewhere in this that I can tell it to show me just what you changed in your force push, but too late now. Already merged.
Done. We don't talk about 999.
It included your new media type, Brandon.
Yeah.
There was just
Power that shall not be referenced.
Whoa,
So yeah,
that's a lot.
big big things changing here. So in our other HackMD, let's see what we got in there. I mean, the items I added was image spec and distribution spec, trying to get a release out, and then thinking about future working groups. Artifact manifest, authentication authorization, and maybe a tag API were on my list. Folks want to talk about other fun stuff while on site? Or dialed in remotely? Maybe I should start with the easy question. Who is going to be on site?
Not me. Sorry, everyone.
Not me.
This can be a very long Zoom meeting for 75% of us. At least this time, maybe we'll be able to hear each other because we won't be on that like one phone on the one corner of the room that people have to keep walking over to.
Are we sure? I'll probably be late. 5:30 in the morning.
Pretty sure Samuel was going to be there,
In person.
or at least he was saying he had a conflict with some of the Containerd project meetings.
I feel like VBATS was going to be there.
Hmm.
So a few more people.
Bill said he's going.
Cool.
5:30 a.m. Pacific. There's no chance I'm there.
I just did the Google search for that.
Yeah, it's in the HackMD too. Someone already put.
I
Pacific time on it.
added it.
Oh, you just
5
did
minutes
that.
ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too much.
Can you take the
Yeah,
call from the bedroom?
Attendees just dropped significantly.
You know, Zoom does work on the phone. Just kind of like hit it and roll back over.
Funny, because I was joking to John just a minute ago that I don't get to sleep through these calls anymore. Because they're always so image and distribution focused that, you know, lowly runtime spec maintainer doesn't have much to say. Now I have a real excuse to sleep through it. It's going to be at 5:30 in the morning.
Sajay, on
Yeah.
395, I saw you asking that question. I think I've got a
There's
few
another
updates.
push. Yeah, there's
I've got a
another
few
push.
updates.
Oh,
That's why my LGTM was with the extra if present text. There's a future LTTM.
okay.
I love a sentence that starts with a must and ends with a if present.
I could always put if present,
In the
then
beginning,
you must. And that way
If-
it's an if you must rather than must if.
It's ambiguous. It's more ambiguous if as to what the if present applies. If it's at the beginning of the sentence, because it's followed by two things, whereas if it's at the end of the sentence, it's
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's why I loved it.
I was going to phrase it as if the artifact type is defined in the image manifest, then you must define the descriptors artifact type with this field.
that's fine, but that's pretty long. I would just hit resolve or commit, call it a day.
I
Right.
love
You can
commit
always come
suggestion.
back and add in additional details on examples or
Yeah,
something.
this is clear to us, but you know, some poor folks coming by implementing a registry.
Someone will read
What if
this
it's not
later.
present? then it's not must. What does that mean? Read the image spec. We're
I'll read the
providing.
next line.
Read the next line. Empty or miss thing. Yeah, sorry. Was that in all cases, the next line? I didn't
Yeah.
check. Okay, good.
I mean, I was also trying to think of phrasing that would put it all in the same line of it must be set to this or that, just something.
Double negatives.
Cool. Any other topics for today? Otherwise, I will work on getting this thing cleaned up and dropping it for people to re-add their LGTMs on that thing.
So yeah, I think 395 is critical to kind of like close the loop on the artifact type, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Tianan has a message in the chat.
Yeah, I was just looking at Tianon's comment. 1020 over on image spec.
Subject on an image index.
We're going to open that can of worms, aren't we?
Oh,
We are, yeah. It's proposed by a maintainer and approved by 2 other maintainers.
oh,
So before I hit approve on it and bury you further, Brandon, I wanted to give you some space to talk about it.
I'm not thrilled, but I've already started throwing the code on my side to handle things that'll undo it. But
Oh, Brandon. Well, I'm glad
good,
we
good.
merged some stuff for you today, so you're not.
Yeah, there you
totally-
go.
I'm still not sure what people are going to use this for, though.
Yeah. Who knows?
If you're looking for use cases, I would throw in a signature on an index. I think there's tremendous value in being able to sign a full index and say, this is the complete set of things that I published.
Yeah, but the signature itself is an image manifest.
Oh,
And so
right. This is the other direction.
Yeah, there's a
This
really
is saying
good-
I have some complicated multi-platform image that needs to refer to something else, or multi-platform, or
you could
doesn't
attach a
have to
build
manifest
cache to an
artifact.
image. You could attach a build cache to an image today because the buildx is actually an index, right?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a multi-platform, right? It can just be
Right.
a list of manifests. And so if you
Yes.
have an aggregate thing like that where you want multiple manifests, this doesn't need to exist, but it has to because we've like split manifests and blobs into separate handlers, and so it sucks. But like it's also a nice way to like aggregate say multiple attachments into one thing. Do you want to say like, hey, copy this bundle? You know, refers API kind of does that for you, but I like this.
Yeah, that helped me think of a different use case. So today, caveat, I don't speak for the build team. I don't speak for the registry team at Docker. I don't speak for anyone at Docker except myself. But today, build kit's SBOM and provenance data is pushed as one artifact, where personally, I think it would be interesting if those were 2 separate manifests, a manifest for the provenance data and a separate manifest for the SBOM, because they are separate data. And pushing all of that together as one index seems like a cleaner way to do that to me than as separate artifacts, because this whole bundle is the bundle of artifacts, the bundle of attachments of refer items that BuildKit generated during the build, that all together are part of this image that was pushed.
So it's kind of like the build kit metadata of everything assembly.
Yeah.
I think you still want to be able to independently pull, give me
Yeah,
just the
that
SBOM.
makes the artifact type filtering on the refers endpoint more complicated, because now you can't query for just SBOMs.
Yeah,
Because
which
they're
is why
hidden in this index.
Which is why when you push that SBOM manifest, I feel like you still want to set refers on that manifest. So that you can query just the SBOM or just the attestation.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. So the children of this index would also have a subject, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So they would be refers as well, but then there's also an index that combines them together to say that jointly these manifests were the objects that BuildKit generated together. So your refers API call would have 3 entries in it.
One of which is a parent of the other 2 already.
Yep.
What is the subject field doing in that though? Like you could push an image manifest list or a manifest list with all the things that you built and generated. But why do you need to have, why does that I guess, sorry, image index. Why does the image index need to have a subject field?
Because otherwise there's no way to discover it.
So the subject field points to one of the children, whatever the primary image is.
No, the subject field would point to the original image, the actual image manifest image that was built.
Okay, which is also one of the children of the image index, or is not?
No, the index would have the SBOM and the provenance object in it.
Okay.
And each of them would also have a subject that points back to that same original image that they are the SBOM and provenance data for. But that would only be so that you could query from the refers API with the artifact type filtering.
I think for my case, I'm thinking it might just be easier to set an annotation that says this is all the BuildKit data. And then you just look at the refers API and just grab everything that has an annotation on it.
Yeah.
Sorry, John.
It's contrived. I'm trying. From a data purity perspective, I think this PR makes sense because it's weird that we have any manifest type is allowed to have a subject field except index.
But there's only 2.
Well, there's only, yeah, there's only one in that, yeah, in the category of manifest types that are allowed to have an index.
Yeah.
So one place I think this would be nice is if I'm dealing with an index and I want to grab some, the SBOM of an index, that might be an index itself, right? And like I might have platform specific SBOMs. And so it would be nice to just ask the registry, hey, does anything reference this index? And see like, oh, here are multiple SBOMs.
The SBOMs are going to reference the image probably, but like child image of the image index.
I think John's saying that you're going
Right.
to have an SBOM for each of the individual images, and then you would have an index of all the SBOMs
Yeah,
pointing to the index
reference.
of all the images.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have to like go down, find all children, and then call refer several times. I can call refer once on the index and have references to all of the SBOMs.
So you don't have to, but you kind of have to because you don't know if someone pushed it your way.
Right.
John's
So
suggestion, yeah.
Then we need artifact type also for.
No, what?
Well, I just said, like, what do you mean?
What
How do you
mean?
know? How do you know if it's the index of your SBOMs or the index of your signatures or the index of your? You need some way to describe the type of the image index.
Yeah, that's why I just commented, should we add artifact type here?
Oh no! Can we just not do it?
All of it? What part do you want to not do?
John, I really like your suggestion of multi-platform refers, because for signatures, we have the same problem where we cannot attach it on the index because you don't know what you're traversing to. So we always say attach it to the leaf, right? The leaf manifest. But if you have this, we can create a unified hey, these are all my signatures for each individual platform, and whoever is resolving it to that platform can go walk down that also.
Yeah.
Because
Also, like, if you can do this, then you can save a bunch of your quota with Docker Hub, right? Because I can just like head the index and then refers that digest rather than having to block it.
Comment just popped up. Yeah, you're probably right. I think if we do subject in, then you have to do, or you should do probably artifact type.
I think it simplifies any
Otherwise,
spec language.
yeah. What do you do in the refers
If
API?
the index itself is an artifact, you kind of have to. John, you open up another can of worms.
It simplifies.
yeah, it's two fields, right? It applies across both manifests. It's at least consistent.
Yeah, I know you can treat things consistently.
We're gonna say John opened the can of worms, then Vincent definitely took it off the shelf.
Yeah.
Credit where credit's due.
I also lit the previous can of worms on fire.
Next time we're in person, there needs to be some kind of can of worms sticker that is on fire, going everywhere. Need some kind of can of worms swag to give out.
Do we have budget? Munich swag. I really want an OCI hat so I can like switch between my various hats during this call. I can't use this hat anymore on these calls. Sucks.
You need to tell your new employer to give you a better hat.
Got a beanie somewhere. Looks like we're at time. Does anyone care to talk about something productive?
I think we just rehash a couple of these things, but I'll go through and clean up mine and tag folks to reapprove the ones that I just fixed or will have just fixed. So if we're adding that and that's VBATS as PR, does someone want to tell VBATS to add artifact type to that? Or does somebody already do that?
I'm almost tempted to merge and then add that as a follow-up, but it's okay either way.
Oh, I see John already commented, so let's see what happens with that. VBATS can
What's
always
the-
say ignore merge.
Do we have real things we want to do with this? Saying that
This
in like
is why I've been able to get
most-
away with pushing it off all this time before now, Mike, is I've just been like, give me a real example why we actually need this.
I thought I did.
Are we really? We're really going to start pushing indexes of all. Like we'll push. What we'll build
I mean,
a multi-architecture image, and then we'll create all of the multi-architecture SBOMs and multi-architecture signatures, and then we're going to push an index of all those things, and then we're going to probably sign those indexes too, and then. Like,
we
where does
kind
it
of
stop,
do
man?
have an index of all the different artifacts. It's called the refers response.
Because the refers API, but it's not the slice. It's sliced the wrong way for what you're asking for.
So,
is
yeah.
John's problem, I think.
I mean, the second thing I'm upset about that happened, we just solved my first one. But the second thing is that refers is scoped too narrowly. Like, I wish I could query for this index without the subject field. We wouldn't have to sign everything individually if we signed the index, and I could ask the registry, hey, what points to this manifest? I could walk back up to the index and get those signatures, but that's not possible right now.
Well, then we work on that. Like, can we just do the reference type stuff for image manifests, and then we can work on how to
No, so I would,
query
I
the
think
backlinks
subject
that
is
you
still
want?
important in that
Okay.
use case, because the subject would be the original index. And so like I want there to be a relationship between the like SBOM index and the index. But I also want a relationship between the SBOM index and the children. So you from
Okay.
any child, you can get the SBOM index. Or
The subject
index.
has important GC qualities that if you make the refers response include both refers and an index, you're mixing two different concepts of what the GC should do.
I continue to disagree with the assertion until proof is provided.
An untagged manifest that refers to something that still exists should remain. We don't have that defined in the spec, but that's kind of like the general assumption of the way registry should implement the GC.
I think I disagree
Mike.
with most GC implementations, and I think we're not, we're not being ambitious enough if we're just saying, oh, GC won't work, because it can work. It's just going to be slightly more complicated.
I'll leave it on that.
All right.
So,
Until next time.
irrespective of the garbage collection issue, I do have a question on what does it mean to have an index that has an artifact type that and a subject reference when the indexes themselves are really supposed to be to a list of platforms, right? Images. And wouldn't those artifact subject references be different per platform?
Not necessarily a list of platforms, but a list of
Not
manifests.
necessarily, but isn't it possible? And this isn't an array of subjects, right? That are for the parts. It's the actual index. And we're assuming that this is an artifact that we're referring to, I guess.
The
That applies
platform
to all platforms.
platform is an optional field in an image index descriptor. So you don't
It was the
have
point
to.
of index in the first place.
It solved that problem.
Yeah.
But image index is a generic thing.
Okay.
It's used in, say, image layout without being platform specific.
Okay.
So I
For
think
that
of image
case-
index as like a tree. It has, say, like a B tree to other manifests.
Right.
Directories versus files.
Yeah, an index is a directory here.
Put it another way, if you're going to put subject and type at the root of your tree, do you need it also for each of the entries in the list?
Not necessarily. For what I had in mind, the list of manifests could point to each SBOM, like each platform specific SBOM. The platform specific SBOM would itself have the subject field.
Got it.
So you'd have to jump one pointer to get that subject.
Okay.
This is why originally we proposed to put subject on
that's fine.
descriptor, but
Okay.
So on that note, think about what you want to talk about next Wednesday. Looking forward to seeing the people that do want to wake up at 5:30 a.m. Pacific Coast time. Feel bad for all the folks over there. And if you can't wake up that early and you show up late, I'll look forward to seeing them too.
Save the fun topics for the end.
Will do. Just for you. Take care.
Thanks.
Good one.